I'm Camille.
I'm Anita.
And we're the Soul Sisters. Let's talk about boobs.
Natural versus unnatural boobs and how you kind of work them stage day.
Yeah, there can be a lot of question of what if you don't have implants? What do you do with your boobs on show day? And how can you give the effect of having a larger breast? So let's dive into it. Not very heavy chested. So when it comes to me competing on show day, I want to get the best symmetry, the best look for my body type, but I lose almost all of what I have during contest prep.
Same here.
So when I diet down, I mean, there's not a whole lot left to work with, but what you can do is pad up with extra sets of pads where you lose that during your contest prep. To kind of, you're not going to get a bigger boob than when you started, but you can achieve that like mid-off season fullness when you're at the end of your prep. And that's kind of the look that you want to go for if you don't have implants, I would say personally. You're not trying to achieve something greater than what you have, but, and we're going to get real nitty-gritty here, because
you're titty nitty-gritty.
Yeah, titty nitty-gritty. First boob joke.
More to come.
So, like, I wear 3 sets of pads when I compete on stage because I lose everything during prep. And it's literally like an art form, right? So you take your boob, you literally grab whatever you got left, you pull it all to the front, even if you just got mostly skin, and then you fill in on the outer kind of third with extra padding. And it doesn't all have to be all bundled up right on the edge there. You can kind of mold the boob to give it like the most natural shape for you. So let's see if we have some boob pads that we can kind of give you a little bit of a demo with. And the way that you wear your suit can be a factor with this as well. It can make your boobs look bigger or smaller depending on where you're at.
And it's also different between figure and bikini. So this one is a figure top, and some bikinis have trim and some have elastic. Elastic helps hold. But if your back band has elastic in, that acts like a rubber band, and you can honestly, it kind of squishes everything together and holds it there long enough while you're on stage. Obviously, you'd have to reset if you were in all day. But if you take it, and this has 2 sets of pads in it already, and you move your boob over to the center front, and then you take and you push and pull that cup. And you can just see it. I mean, it's holding its mold already. And then just think that you're behind the padding with everything.
And depending on how many pads you'll need depends on how much you lose. So some ladies do keep some of their breasts as they diet down, and that's awesome. I'm jealous. Yep. And then so that person might only need 1 or maybe just 2 sets of pads. I would say probably the most common is 2. But if you're super flat-chested, 3 like me is necessary, or I like that look better. But it's how exactly that tip of pulling it from the side back here while holding the center front steady is like a magic trick. So definitely try that out on stage or come find me and I can help adjust your boobs.
All right, absolutely. And everyone kind of needs that double check on everything.
Yeah.
Some girls I've seen go to stage without a single pad in their suit, and it's too flat. There's no shape there. There isn't much boob left. Even if you have implants, a lot of those gals will wear just like a thin layer to help cup and hold, especially for figure because they crisscross in the back in physique and bodybuilding, in wellness, that they crisscross. No, wellness doesn't crisscross in the back, but they crisscross in the back, so you don't get that same tight grab that you would typically get from a bikini. So there's ways to adjust from that.
And I would say the figure suits in general too, they're going to have a larger cup size typically. Do you see that more with figure suits having a little bit of a larger cup, even though the breast size isn't necessarily larger?
Right.
Just so that it can kind of wrap around and you can fill up that cup to have it match kind of top to bottom.
And I think they start to look more flat because they're pulled top to bottom.
Right.
You know, so a lot of it between the figure and the bikini cups now, if they were both elastic, are pretty similar, but I see what you're saying, how they look more stretched out and elongated, definitely. Let's talk about implants. They are obviously going to keep your curve while you're on stage that day, but they're going to change as you're dieting down as well.
And they misbehave as well.
They misbehave as well, and some more than others, and either under the muscle or on top. Every woman has her own adventure. But the main thing is to really hike hike them up as high as, because you don't want your implants to hang and sit too low, because then they cut that midsection out. You want to hike them up as high as you can. An elastic in your strap is another key component to help them. And then it depends on how big your implant is compared to your cup size of the suit you get. Some girls like a really, really small cup size over their implant, so then you might not be able to fit much of a pad in there. But if you have a little bit more room in your suit and you add a pad, it just kind of helps the implant the day of to just stay center front.
Yeah, and I would say if you're going to pick to have part of your implant exposed, I would definitely pick the center part and not a side boob.
Right.
Side boob's not super great.
Yeah.
On show day, again, depends on your suit cut. Because I have seen some bikinis with a smaller cup size with implants, and I've seen it done tastefully, right?
Yep.
Like it's a smaller cup on top of it, but it's done tastefully. It doesn't look like they're spilling out of the suit. It looks very intentional.
Right. Now, some girls prefer a little bit more spill. I mean, if that's your cup of tea, that it should be fine. Just remember, there's probably going to be kids at the show. But some federations are a lot more sassy, so you can push it. We're talking a little bit more on the natural line and the MPC line of things. I think another thing is
I see underboob happen a lot.
Yeah.
And it's not because there's something wrong with their boobs. It's usually, and it's not because there's something wrong with their suit either. It's how the suit is tied, usually, is how when I see it. It's too loose of a band around the midsection, so that cup, and too tight around the top. So then all that force is coming to pull up, because you want those gals to be nice and high up on that day. But if that band around the waist, around the chest, isn't tight enough, it's just going to scoop up, and then you're going to have your underboob hanging out.
Where I was headed before, it was, so even if you are off-season, on-season, doesn't matter. If you're more of like an A-B cup, but you're a taller, bigger gal or a broader gal, you're gonna want a bigger cup size that day. So remember, even if your boob is one size, it doesn't mean that your bikini is gonna look the best at that cup size. So I am wearing basically a C cup. Somewhere in a C when I'm on stage, but that's not my boob. But if I was more of a petite frame girl, then a B, C, or a A, B will work on you, because you can still feel the padding and it's not encompassing on your chest.
Right.
It's all about a visual display.
Yeah.
It really, really is. The judges don't get to hop on stage and get a close-up of you. They can't examine you completely. And if you can make it look like you're full on the top, it just creates that bikini hourglass shape that they're looking for. We're not saying boobs for the win. We're saying we're trying to fit the image of what they're looking for that day.
Find that symmetry.
How do you get there that day when you were that low on body fat? Mm-hmm. Right? Because again, power to women on any level. I mean, we've all, we have friends that have implants. There's a ton of implants in the industry.
Right.
I mean, most women, especially women who stay in the industry, they're so used to being leaner that at some point, a lot of them do end up getting implants just to kind of complete that look for them. But everyone kind of takes their own journey. I mean.
Yeah. So whatever size that you have currently, that's okay, and you can compete with that. And I got my pro card, and I don't have implants.
Yep, I know multiple pros that don't have them, and I know that some that do. So it really comes down to what you want and how it works financially, or works in your belief system, but it won't hold you back on stage. All it's possible, but still you want to look with curve. You want that illusion. So if you don't have them, but you love to glorify it, still fill them that day and make them look the part.
Yeah, and talk to your suit maker if you are kind of nervous about that. See what padding options they have. I've seen the chicken cutlets go bad.
Oh, yeah, they can definitely go bad.
I've seen them work well.
Out, yeah. I've seen rice in a bag.
Yep. I've seen some lady, I was like, wow, your boobs look amazing. Not a weird compliment backstage.
So normal.
And she literally whipped out a bag of rice.
Yes, and to me, like the chicken cutlets, like the silicone ones, they get to be heavy. And sometimes they sit weird, and sometimes you can see them in there. The rice in the bag, she liked the movement of it. It just seemed more real. She now has implants, so I think she was trying to envision herself with ginormous, but they look great. She loved them. I think she posted about them a ton of times.
Yeah,
so everyone, if you've been in the industry for a little while, everyone kind of has tips and tricks, and we're open to all possibilities. But the lightweight foam pads are a nice way to go, and they come in all shapes and sizes.
Right, and you can kind of mix and match. They have the thinner ones that don't have like an L cup on the edge, or like I don't just stack all of them on that corner because I want to, again, create that shape.
Right.
So you can kind of use padding to create whatever shape that it is you're looking for. If maybe you have one boob that's bigger than the other, that happens too.
Yep.
And you can pad accordingly. So you have 3 on one side, 2 on the other, or whatever that may be.
Sometimes I'll take a bigger, thinner pad for the outer layer and then stuff little padding behind it, so I kind of get that full beautiful shape, and then the pad just fills in behind it. I've seen people use pillow batting inside of pillows.
Oh, yep. Get a little squishy
Again,
boob.
yeah, right? It would work. If you've got the time and want to stuff it all in there, not a problem. I think I've even seen suit makers sometimes stuff a little chunk of that in there with stuff and then sew it in. So there is no right or wrong, but you're going to want some assistance that day.
Right. And making sure it looks, have someone give you a glance over before you head out on stage, because you don't want something to have gotten dislodged when you were doing your final pee break before you head out on stage. So have someone take a good look front and back, make sure that everything looks, clean and kept, and make sure those hooks are fully connected. Sometimes on like the back hooks, because everyone's fear. I've had multiple dreams about your top flying off on stage.
I've seen it happen at multiple shows. It happens, so the fear is real. People.
Yeah. So make sure that if you do have a back connector, hook connector, that hook doesn't just go through the top, but comes all the way out through the bottom, so you can see the metal on the top and bottom.
Yep.
So that it's hooked all the way through, so that you don't have to worry about it kind of coming unpinged. I think I see most of the time it happening when it's either a plastic connector that literally snap, which happens from lesser quality suits, or a metal connector that wasn't all the way hooked all the way through. It was just kind of half hooked.
Right.
So it felt secure, but have someone look at it physically to be able to see, is it latched or not. And what do you think about ties versus
I was just
latched?
going to go there with that. Yeah. So if if you're going to have ties, just make sure you don't have super long dangling strings down your back. It's, again, not going to make or break your placing, but to me it's like, overall, are you put together? Have you looked at all the details? Because if there's a woman who has a very similar physique standing right next to you or near you, and she's more clean cut and put together and more fitting the role, then I just feel that they're going to, it's when you're starting to break things down. Most bodies aren't identical to each other, so there's different breakdowns, but cut the string. Figure out, and it doesn't have to be a giant bow either.
No.
A little bow with a double knot to make sure you're good. Get it nice and tight. Practice it. If you have a hook on your back, and some have pretty rhinestone hooks, and we have them too. We work with all metal hooks, so because I've been backstage when the plastic ones break, and if you don't have safety pins and a good friend and patience when you're trying to get on stage, it gets very you can panic. But we have metal hooks, but if you're really worried about it, you could even, and again, practice before show day, but set the hook, flip it backwards, and put a pin back there to make sure if you've got something you're worried about popping out. But most girls, when they ping on them, as long as it's not up here, well, this kind of falls slow. When I've seen these open up on stage, they feel it because you're right there.
Yeah.
You have nothing else on your skin, and you kind of feel it go. So I've always seen girls, they catch them.
Catch grab.
And by all means, like, to me, that's the biggest thing. Like, you'll feel it, you'll catch it. But if you're with her on stage and it's not you and it's her, get over there and help block her or help her get off stage, because she just lived your nightmare.
Yes.
And everyone will acclimate you for taking a moment and helping her get right and tight.
Right.
She's going to be aiming off stage. But what other tricks do you have? Joke number 2.
Yeah. I would say, choosing, if you have different connectors versus non-connectors, on like the lengths of them, I would say a lot of it's personal preference. I would say that it doesn't matter the length of the connector up top. It doesn't play a factor into how your boobs are going to sit. But I would say definitely look for a suit that has an elastic around that waistband.
Yeah.
So that can help hold it a little bit more snug.
And you can tell by grabbing, and sometimes you're going to order a suit. All of ours, again, has elastic in it, so you're going to see them bounce. They're going to have that rubber
and
band.
come back.
But some of them don't, and they just kind of lay there. They're not going to help super tie in. Some girls want the hook at the back of their neck. I would say unless you have short hair, do not worry about that, because the day of the show you're going to be tightening and changing, and because that body, that look, you're honing in for that day, things change. So just make sure you cut those down too, and they're not super long, and just have a little bow. If you have short hair and you can get a clip in there, it helps just kind of clean it up, or just make sure the bow is right and tight and little.
Neat. Yeah. Definitely. Hopes this helps you shine on stage.
Shine on.
Check out our podcast where we interviewed Erica, who is a foodie like me and a mommy like many.